All right, let's dive right into the world of digital forensics. This is a place where every single click, every connection can leave behind a clue. We're talking about a high-stakes game played across hard drives and tiny memory chips. And as you're about to see, the very first move an investigator makes can be the difference between solving a case and it going cold forever.
So put yourself in the shoes of an investigator for a second. You've just walked into a room, and there it is, on the desk, a suspect's laptop. It's on, it's running, and you know it's a potential goldmine of evidence. What you do next? Well, that first move is absolutely critical. It's going to shape the entire investigation from that point on. So what do you do? I mean, really think about it. This isn't just some hypothetical question for the experts. This is a real-world dilemma they face all the time. And believe me, the answer is not as simple as you might think. What's your gut instinct telling you? Okay, so you basically have two main choices. For years, the standard procedure was just pull the plug, kill the power. It's clean, it's simple, and it stops any more changes from being written to the hard drive. But here's the problem. In today's world of full disk encryption, doing that could mean you've just locked yourself out of the evidence forever. The other option? You perform a live image. You capture all the data while the machine is still running. This saves everything, but, and this is a big but, the very act of capturing the data actually changes the system. It's a real catch-22.
The reason this whole choice is so tense, so critical, is because you're literally chasing ghosts in the machine. We are talking about the most temporary, fleeting kind of data you can imagine. Information that can just disappear in a blink of an eye.
And that ghost has a name. It's called volatile memory, or what most of us know as RAM. You can think of it as the computer's conscious mind. It holds every program that's currently open, all the active network connections, passwords, even encryption keys, basically the live state of the machine. But it has one single crucial weakness. The second you cut the power, it's gone. Poof, vanished into thin air. This analogy is surprisingly perfect. A computer's active memory really is like Homer's brain. New information is constantly pushing out the old stuff. It's this incredibly fragile snapshot in time. So that decision to pull the plug, it's like hitting the giant reset button on that snapshot. You only get one shot to capture it.
But hey, even if an investigator misses that live snapshot, all is not lost. There are other digital breadcrumbs you can follow. The hibernation file, for instance, that's a complete dump of the RAM from the last time the computer hibernated. Then there's the page file, which is kind of like an overflow parking lot for active memory, holding all these little bits and pieces of data. And if the suspect was using virtual machines, oh yeah, those have their own memory files that can be their own separate treasure troves.
So how do investigators actually capture all this data and then, make sense of it? It's not as simple as just plugging in a USB drive. No, they use a highly specialized set of tools that are designed for one purpose, and one purpose only: to find the truth without contaminating the original evidence.
Step one is always acquisition. Using software like FTK Imager, an investigator creates a perfect bit-for-bit copy of the memory. This is what's called a raw image. And the number one rule here, the golden rule, is you always work on the copy. You leave the original evidence completely pristine, completely untouched. Once that copy is secure, the hunt begins. Analysis tools are used to comb through that massive memory file. They can piece together what programs were running, what network connections were active, what files were loaded, and they flag anything that seems out of place, like, say, a normal system process that's trying to connect to a suspicious IP address in another country. Now, laptops are one thing, but the modern investigation, it almost always expands to the most personal device any of us carry, our smartphone. And let me tell you, the amount of evidence on these things is just staggering. I mean, the explosion of data has been just incredible to watch. We went from those early feature phones that basically just held call logs and text messages, to the first smartphones with some basic internet history, to the devices we have in our pockets today, which hold a detailed record of our entire digital lives. And today, that smartphone market is pretty much a duopoly. Android and iOS make up somewhere between 97 and 99% of all smartphones on the planet. So what does that mean for an investigator? Well, it means you have to be an absolute expert in these two platforms because you are almost guaranteed to run into them on every single case. And what can you find on them? Everything. Literally everything. Call logs, photos, every website you've ever visited, sure. But also your physical movements tracked by cell towers and GPS.
And that's before you even get to the data from all the third-party apps, social media, messaging apps, banking apps. It is a complete diary of a person's life. But trying to get access to that diary has become the single greatest challenge in modern forensics. And why is that? It comes down to one word: encryption. That unbreakable digital lock is now standard on every single phone.
This whole conflict really came to a head in the famous San Bernardino case. The FBI had an iPhone from one of the shooters, but they couldn't get past the passcode. So they got a court order demanding that Apple create a special version of iOS to bypass its own security features, essentially a backdoor into their own product.
Apple refused, flat out, and that set up this massive legal and ethical battle. But in the end, the FBI suddenly withdrew its case. Why? Because they found another way in, but it came at a price, a big one. They paid a third-party firm over $1.3 million to hack into that one phone.
And the hack worked, but here's the thing. It was a one-shot deal. It was specific to that older model of iPhone. It didn't create some universal key. It was just a single, incredibly expensive victory in a much larger, ongoing war over privacy and security, a war that is nowhere near resolved today.
All this technology we've talked about is unbelievably powerful, but it's also useless and sometimes even dangerous without the right person interpreting the results. You see, the most important tool isn't a piece of software. It's the integrity and the skill of the human expert.
Let me tell you a cautionary tale. Back in 2007, a substitute teacher named Julie Amaro was convicted of risk of injury to a minor. She was facing a 40-year prison sentence. And that conviction? It was based almost entirely on the testimony of a computer forensic expert.
And this was the pivotal moment in the trial. The prosecution showed a list of internet links from her classroom computer. The detective was asked what was different about one particularly explicit link, and his answer was simple: the color, it's red. And this was presented to the jury as definitive proof that the link had been clicked.
But that just wasn't the truth. When other actual experts later examined the evidence, they found the first analysis was catastrophically flawed. They proved conclusively that the link was never clicked by anyone. The red color, it was just a formatting style on the web page itself. Based on this new, competent analysis, Julie Amaro's conviction was completely overturned.
And that case really just underscores what it truly means to be an expert. It's not just about knowing which buttons to click, it's about deep technical skill, a real understanding of the forensic process, critical thinking, and maybe most importantly, a commitment to your legal and ethical obligations to find the objective truth no matter what.
Which brings us to our final question. The tools. They can pull out every last bit and byte of a device. They can show us the what, the where, and the when. But they can never, ever tell us the why. For that, we have to rely on a person. So as digital evidence becomes more and more central to our justice system, the real question is, who do you trust to tell its story?